Here's how to buy a house for pennies on the dollar and overcome the biggest challenge with buying houses that are government seized and for pennies on the dollar. And that biggest challenge is always going to come back to the title issues that can occur whenever you're buying a government seized property for 80-90% below market value, or if you're going to a government tax auction, you're buying a tax property for the back taxes owed, or you're buying a property at an auction. The issues that come up are always going to be, how do you work the title? How do you research the title? Because if you've been watching this channel, you know that the average investor these days is scraping and struggling to try to find a deal, right? Everything on Zillow is going crazy. If you're on the MLS or talking to realtors, you're literally fighting for scraps. So why not buy a property that's a government seized property or a tax lien deed where you can get a house for 80-90% below market value sometimes? However, when you're getting into this and you're researching the properties, the biggest challenge that you're going to face is researching the title, right? There's a couple key things that you need to look out for, and one of the big ones is when you're researching the title is you want to make sure when you buy that property, you've heard the term free and clear, right? And the reason that is because when you buy a government seized property, or you buy at the tax deed sale, or you foreclose on a tax lien, all of the liens, mortgages get wiped out. Now the question is, how do you verify that before you buy the property? And when you get the property, a lot of the times at these sales, you don't have a clean deed. Okay, so what that means is if you go to try to sell it, the title company isn't going to issue title insurance on that property unless you know what you're doing. So that's why I'm excited about this video here today. It is the most comprehensive dive into tax deed, government seized property, and tax lien property when you get it, on how to clear the title on these things. So I've never seen a deep dive like we're going to get in here today, and this stuff is super important because there's so many deals out there for you to get right now. And you know, in the economy, everybody's scraping by, inflation, all this stuff. If you can scoop up deals even 50% of market value, you're going to be in great shape. However, I don't want you to get caught at the bottleneck of not taking action because A, you don't know how to check the titles, or B, you don't know how to properly clear after. So I'm Dustin Hahn. This channel is dedicated to helping the average person get into real estate through government seized property, tax deeds, tax liens, because this is an unconventional way of getting into real estate so you can create wealth for yourself, create that legacy that you're looking for, maybe escape the 9-to-5 day job of doom. You know, like I mentioned, that's what I used to do, and classic story where I got into this business and it helped me replace my income through real estate. So if you like this stuff, hit the thumbs up on this video, subscribe, and we're gonna have a really good time. Ask me a question in the comments, be happy to answer them. So in a minute, what we're gonna do is, when we buy these properties, we work with a company called Tax Title Services, and they are experts at clearing title. They can do it within 30 to 60 days on most property, no matter where you are. So what we've done is we've brought in one of their experts, and we're gonna go and we're gonna do an interview with them so that you can learn how the chain of title works step by step and clear up one of the biggest challenges and one of the biggest mysteries when it comes to title with these properties. So let's buckle up. Once again, if you like this, hit the thumbs up, subscribe. This is the most comprehensive video on title that you're ever gonna find online for tax liens and tax deeds and government seized properties. So you can do this with the confidence, go into it and buy these properties. So without further ado, we're gonna jump to the interview right now. All right, hello everybody, and welcome to today's special event. We have with us here Nick Thomas from Tax Title Services. Hello, Nick. Thanks for joining us. And then we have our regulars, Mr. Corey and Josh. And we are excited here today because as you guys are doing tax lien and deed investing, one of the biggest challenges and hurdles is dealing with title, especially as you're building up to buying a property and then after you buy a property. So as you know, when you buy a property at an auction, sometimes you need to do some work to the title to have a marketable title in order to sell that property effectively. So we've mentioned over the years, working with Tax Title Services, we've worked with them. Many of our customers and clients have worked with them. And today we thought we would bring on one of the experts from the company to share with everybody here just a more in-depth look at it and optimal best practices for title, and then also how you guys can work with Tax Title Services and work with the company to be able to expedite the process and flip your tax liens and deeds quite quickly. So yeah, without further ado, Nick, thanks for joining us here today. And he's gonna share a presentation with us, and then we'll go through some Q&A with him at the end, and we're gonna have a good time. So yeah, welcome on, Nick.
Nice. Thanks, Dustin. Thanks for having me. Josh, Corey, good to see you guys. Yeah, so title insurance and tax sale properties, right? Like that's the kind of unspoken battle that so many investors don't understand until they are faced with it head on. And by that time, could be too late, or could be something that just really delays your deal and prevents you from moving on to the next one and keeping the wheels in motion. So we're going to try to help you avoid that as much as possible. And a lot of that starts with knowing something about title and title insurance. And it is a very mundane topic, but it's something that's coming up a lot right now if you're looking at like housing affordability issues and whatnot. So you've probably heard those buzzwords about keeping the cost of home ownership down because title insurance is too expensive, but it is a very necessary insurance, and this is part of the reason why. So I'm Nick Thomas. I'm with Tax Title Services, and I'm going to go ahead and share a screen with you that kind of gives a quick breakdown on actually what title is, how it relates to tax sale properties, and then how Tax Title Services has been revolutionizing the way that tax sale investors can help obtain title insurance for over 25 years now. So I'll go ahead and dive in and share screen. All right, can everybody see my screen okay?
Yep.
Awesome, good deal. All right, so Tax Title Services, and the tagline over our history has always been tax deed title insurance without a quiet title action, okay? And that's the goal. We want to be a alternative for a quiet title action for you, and we'll dive into the reasons why here now. So what exactly is title in the world of real estate? Well, it's so funny because we'll get phone calls all the time like, hey, I just wanted a tax sale and you guys, Tax Title Services, send me my title. Like, well, guys, there's a big difference in between, real estate property title versus a car title that you're pulling out of your glove box when you get pulled over. It doesn't quite work that way. We don't have your title just sitting here in a file cabinet. We're going to, send right over to you. No. Title is something that defines your ownership rights, and it's recorded at the county, okay? And it's not something that we have, it's not a single document. It's a whole series of documents. It's a chain of documents known as the chain of title, all right? And so your chain of title is the entire history of the property. So, let's say that there's a giant farm and that farm is purchased and it's subdivided into individual parcels. Each one of those individual parcels will have its own chain of title. If it's the first transaction for that individual parcel, the chain of title would go back to the parent property, the original farm. So the chain of title is everything that has ever happened to that property legally that's been recorded at the county recorder's office, register of deeds, or any number of little offices throughout a county. Gosh, I'm drawing a blank for the back end there. We'll just go with recorder's office for now. But at any rate, so within your chain of title, you're going to have deeds, okay, and those are the conveyance tool. That's what shows that would be the closest thing to your car title that you're going to pull out and show ownership to a property. It's okay, here's my deed. This defines my ownership of the property. Okay. And one of the things I really want to make sure everybody understands, when you buy a tax deed property or a property from a tax sale, you don't own a tax deed. You can't sell a tax deed. Tax deeds are only sold by a county. They can only be sold by the government. You're selling real property. And what that tax deed does is it defines your ownership in that property. So when you sell a property, you're not going to go to a seller and say, or a buyer and say, hey, I want to sell you my tax deed. No, I want to sell you my property. So that's always a big mix up. And it causes a lot of confusion as not important as that sounds, it's actually very important, because if you take it to a realtor or anybody who's not really familiar with how tax sales work, and you tell them you want to sell a taxi, well, they're going to go ask their preferred network of people. We're going to be like, no, you can't sell a taxi, and technically you can't, but you can sell real property, you can sell real estate, and that's what you're selling is real estate. So a little off topic, and we'll dive back into that a little further in, but some other common items you're going to find in your chain of title, liens, okay? And that's, basically legal claim of rights to a property. It could be mechanics liens, IRS liens, medical liens, there's so many of them out there. But, those are basically what are used to enforce debt against that property, okay? And those are big, because when you're buying at a tax sale, you're looking to hopefully have most of those liens and encumbrances not affect you in what you're going to be doing with the property in the future. Easement, and that's, that's basically just grants access to the property. And it's just an example I threw up there. There's tons of other items that could show up in the chain of title, but these are the big ones that you're going to see. And so how do you compile the chain of title? Well, it's through a title search or an abstract, okay? And what that is basically if you order a title search today and say, hey, I need a title search. Well, it gets basically stamped that day. This is a snapshot of what the history of your property is going backwards. Okay. So the important thing with title is, when it comes to title insurance, it's a backwards insurance. It's insuring history, not future. Okay. So your search or your abstract is what a title company is going to use to help provide title insurance. So that search or abstract comes into a title company. It goes through their exam department, and they work to cure. And by cure, I mean obtain releases for any type of liens or encumbrances that are on title. And this is a big one here. So traditionally, when you're buying a property, like just a normal property, not through tax sale, and title companies like, okay, I'm looking through this, and oh, there's a mechanics lien here. Joe the contractor says you owe him $3,000 for this roof. Oh, there's also a first mortgage that we need to pay off. Okay, those are just like two examples of what might be in a chain of title. Well, before you could sell that property and have title insurance protect that new owner of the property, traditionally, a title company would need to obtain payoffs and releases and record those items. So in the chain of title, nothing can ever be deleted. It never gets deleted. It stays in there as long as that property is a property, the chain of title is going to be unchanged. Now, I mean, the history of the chain, you can record new documents, but you cannot alter anything that's been recorded. So historically, you would obtain a payoff, which shows the amount that's owed. And then you could pay off those amounts through the closing. And then those lien holders, your mortgage company, your Joe, the contractor, sends you over a release. And that release is a notarized document that would get recorded in the chain of title, which lets the whole world know that property, that those liens or encumbrances are satisfied and they're no longer enforceable by that party. So now that property is being sold and conveyed to the next party down the line, without risk of those people, of trying to further pursue any kind of interest against that property. So it's kind of, I guess, what the term would be, now it's sold free and clear because the property does not have any liens or encumbrances against it. So those little deeds and the releases that could be required, those are typically go as requirements on a title commitment. So you have your chain of title, which turns into the search, which then goes into exam, and then they decide what items go on what's called a title commitment. And then the title commitment contains requirements, and the requirements are what are used to make sure that a property is okay for title insurance. Once the requirements are satisfied, the property can be conveyed with a warranty deed to the next buyer and have a title policy that protects their interest should anybody ever try to challenge that, that new buyer's ownership interest in the property from the past. So a lot of stuff in there. Let me just pop into the next slide. So what is title insurance? I said several times that, it's history, and it is. It's an indemnity insurance that, insures against financial loss from defects in the chain of title. Chain of title meaning the history of the title. So any type of defect that's in that chain of title, like a lien or an unreleased mortgage, those would be considered defects in title. Title insurance is going to protect the current owner from any of those items. And that happens because, the prior company's job is to make sure that those releases are recorded with the county. So that way those parties can no longer challenge, the ownership interest of the new owner. So title insurance protects against defects in the chain of titles history. Okay. Now, your deed, that is, your legal title. That's your car title. You're like, yeah, you get pulled over, you pull out your glove box, your title. Well, that's really your deed when it comes to real estate investing. Okay. Closest thing to it, at least. And that's the document that's in the chain of title that is establishing, your ownership interest in that property. Okay. The most common deed out there is obviously going to be a warranty deed. And the big thing that you'll realize when in investing in your investing journey is that, these little words have meaning. So when there's a warranty deed, there's what's called a guarantee of clear title to the buyer. Okay. So if it's got a warranty, there's a guarantee, it's got like, the extended consumer warranty. Just kidding, not quite the same thing, but it is similar. So there's a guarantee there. So who's guaranteeing that? If I sell, Dustin a property that I just, I own outright, whatever, I've owned it for 30 years and I've got no mortgages or anything about it, I'm going to sell it to Dustin. And I'm like, hey, you know what? Yeah, we can just use a warranty deed and I'll go walk it to the county and record it. Well, if there's no title company assisting in that, I'm the one who's warrantying and guaranteeing that title. So if there were a defect in that chain of title and there's not a title insurance policy, I'm the one that's on the hook for it. So say there was some contractor who did some work for me and filed a lien I had no idea about, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and sign this deed over to Dustin, walk it down to the county, record him a warranty deed. And then now I don't own the property. Dustin owns the property. The contractor comes back and it's like, hey, you owe me money. And Dustin's like, I don't owe you a thing. I just bought this property. This is not my problem. Well, you know what? I'm going to call the guy who guaranteed this deed to me. And so that's where the warranty comes into play with warranty deeds. So now it's on me to make that problem go away. So that's what title insurance does, which is why your warranty deed is one of your most common, deeds that are out there. So
all right, I hope you're liking the interview. If you like this stuff so far, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up on this video. Go ahead, subscribe so you can learn more about how to buy tax liens and deeds and government seized properties for amazing deals. Thumbs up, subscribe, ask a question in the comments. Back to the interview.
When you go into a quitclaim deed, there's no guarantee. Okay. That's why it's not a warranty deed. There is zero guarantee. So along with the property, there's basically all ownership interest and liens and encumbrances are transferred with the property to that new owner, and it's that new owner's responsibility. So in the same scenario, if I had conveyed that property to Dustin via quitclaim deed, then that contractor, that's not my problem anymore. I'm out. My hands are clean. I'm done. That is Dustin's problem because he accepted the property with a quitclaim deed as the conveyance tool. Okay. And so what you're going to see now, the common occurrence with a quitclaim deed, and basically every, tax deed, treasurer's deed, sheriff's deed, clerk and master's, collector's deed, these are all kind of state specific deeds used to, convey and sell tax sale property. But the most common thing with all of these is that there is no guarantee for any of them. Your grant deed is more used on the West Coast, and those sometimes carry warranty, sometimes don't. But they're not used in tax sale transactions. But, if a county's selling a property, your tax deed, it's government, the right to convey the property. So circling back, it's the government's right to convey a tax deed, never a purchaser's right, never an owner's right to convey a tax deed to somebody else. I could not walk down and say, hey, Dustin, I got this tax deed, I'm going to sell you, and then make up my own tax deed and record it at the county. No way, no how. That would never work. So, that's going back, the government's the only one who can do that. The government's the only person who can issue a treasurer's deed, a sheriff's deed, clerk and master's, collector's deed. And, all of these deeds are just different kind of forms of tax deeds, right? Like you're going to have tax deeds in states like Florida, and then, other states are just going to have other types of deeds that convey tax sale property to, the investor. But what's the most common thing about them is, unless there's a judicial foreclosure that goes with that property or some type of judicial process, these properties are essentially like a property with a quitclaim deed. So any lien or encumbrance, whether or not it's extinguished by that tax sale, is going to show on title as open. And that's because through a tax sale process, there are not payoffs and releases recorded. There's not any type of release recorded from prior parties of interest. A mortgage holder is not going to just sign a release away and say, oh yeah, you won that one fair and square. Yep, here you go. Let me just sign away my right on that. No, I mean, even though technically their rights may not be enforceable, depending on the state, that's it. So that's why, tax sale properties are interesting and problematic for title insurance companies, because in the history of real estate, title insurance is provided once all releases are recorded and that there's no longer open items in the chain of title. Well, when it goes to a tax sale property, although this tax sale deed does mean that a lot of these interests are wiped out by the sale, however, they're still technically open because you don't have acknowledgement from those parties, basically in the form of releases that are recorded. So moving into the next slide, which is, okay, this is all cool, but what's tax title's role in all this, right? So, historically, you would have to go through a quiet title action to remedy this problem of, okay, the benefit of buying at a tax sale is that your liens, encumbrances, first mortgages, seconds, all these items are wiped out by the tax sale, right? Throughout most of the country, and most sales. And I say that because there are some, other states where everything's not wiped out. Like if you go into like a Pennsylvania upset sale, nothing's wiped out. You got to satisfy everything on title there, right? But for the most part, generally speaking, tax sale investing is lucrative for investors because so many of these liens and encumbrances are extinguished by the sale. And by extinguished, I mean technically not enforceable unless there was an error in the tax sale, proceedings and notifications. Okay. And so now, because of this item, the tax sale wiping out all of these interest in title, historically, to verify, because the county's not going to take responsibility and say, oh yeah, you know what, we missed this guy notifying. They're not going to provide guarantee, I guess is the best way to put it, to the tax sale. You're buying this property, as is, consumer beware. They're not guaranteeing anything other than that you're buying, a tax sale property. So if a title insurance company were to just say, hey, you know what, we want to go ahead and insure this chain of title and you can go ahead and sell it to somebody else, and say the county did not notify somebody correctly, and it's like 3 years after a sale, and all challenge periods and whatnot are all out or whatever by the whatever the statute is. Well, who would a title insurer look to cover that risk? So you can't go back to the county and say, hey, thank you for selling this guy the property, but looks like you missed XYZ. Well, they're not going to make anybody whole. That's out of there. It's off their books. The wheels are already moving. So historically, what a title company would do would recommend a quiet title action, which for those of you that don't know is a judicial process. You know, depending on the state, takes anywhere from 6 months to 2+ years. And, you know, we'll dive into some of that, you know, a little bit later. But so Tax Title Services was founded, you know, around 2001 was the official date, but been operational since 1999. And it was a few senior underwriters at one of the biggest title underwriters in the country developed this process where we review the chain of title and make sure that essentially the county performed their due process correctly, and that, you know, there is no risk to the title insurance underwriter of a prior party of interest coming back to challenge the chain of title or the tax sale or that owner's right in the chain of title. So that's what Tax Title does, and it's a great tool for investors. So quick recap, you know, founded in 2001. All we work on is tax sale transactions in our certification. We don't try to review files and then kick out like 90% to, you know, an in-house attorney who wants to go do a quiet title action and then upcharge you. You know, our goal is to produce marketable and insurable title faster than, you know, basically anybody else can. You know, we're nearing the 60,000 mark. I made this a while ago, need to update it. And we operate in over, you know, 30 states. So that's it. You know, we like to really fancy ourselves as, you know, experts when it comes to, you know, what is needed to clear title for tax sale investors. And so part of our process, you know, we order a title search. You know, that kind of starts everything. You know, we get our hands on the foreclosure or the tax sale file from the county. You know, we're checking, you know, for prior owners and their heirs. You know, we're looking at probate. You know, we have an inspector go out and have a look at the property. You know, make sure it is what it's supposed to be. You know, if there's somebody living in it who, you know, like didn't know of the tax sale, you know, it's kind of a red flag for us. But, you know, those are just a couple of the steps. And then once everything's completed, we issue our certification, which includes an indemnification that covers the title insurance underwriter and the title insurance agent for the transaction, for, you know, for the title policy that will be issued once we've completed our work. So liens, you know, this is always a real big one for us. You know, your municipal liens in most cases across the country survive. Okay. And that's very, very, very important because if they're not on record, which, you know, does happen in Florida, you know, county to county, not everything is uniform. Those municipal liens can be very problematic to you. You know, there are some counties where just because it's not on record, it can still be enforced, although it's not something that is going to show up every single time, and there might not be, you know, municipal lien, but essentially in Florida, county to county, it changes. So some counties will have all their municipal liens recorded, and they'll show up when you do an O&E report, you know, prior to your tax sale due diligence. In some counties, they will not. And then so you kind of need to, you know, do what you need to do to make sure, you know, like your trash, water, sewer, code enforcement violation, all those little liens, which sound like nothing, are, you know, satisfied, or, you know, or be aware of what's there, I guess would be the best way to put it. Because if you think about it in perspective, you know, there's a default cycle that leads up to, you know, a tax deed being sold, right? Especially in Florida, where, you know, you have the liens that are sold, you know, every single year, and then, you know, that goes, you know, a minimum of 2 years, but it could be up to, I think, 6 years before they have the right to foreclose. But at any rate, once that tax sale property, you know, nobody's really taking care of it during that time period. So you could have somebody out there, the city could be sending somebody out there to cut the grass every single week or every 2 weeks for like $250 a week, whatever, who knows the numbers, but it could add up. And we've seen them add up to $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. I mean, the house could be condemned within a, you know, like a lien against it that's saying you have to bulldoze it down. And by the way, or we already did it and you owe us, you know, $50,000 for that work. You know, that all could fall under municipal liens. And so it's very important for you to weed those out. You can order municipal lien searches separately, or you can call each of those departments on your own to make sure. But it's always a good rule of practice to give that a try in the state of Florida. Throughout most of the rest of the country, these liens are recorded in the chain of title, but it's always a little bit risky, in my opinion. That this is probably the most worrisome item there is. So, but your HOA liens, they're wiped out by the tax sale. Now, there are some HOAs out there that'll argue this all day long, but it's been shot down so many times, and most times it's just more so some like a mom and pop run HOA trying to collect on past due fees, but ultimately the HOAs are wiped out. IRS liens are wiped out by the sale. There's additional 120-day notice that happens, but as long as that goes down, those are out. Mechanics liens extinguished, mortgages, deed of trust extinguished by the tax sale. So remember, extinguished means that they're not enforceable. They still show in the chain of title. So if I buy a property at a tax sale and it's got all these liens on them right here, it's got a mortgage, we've got the deed of trust that's recorded. You have your Joe contractor mechanic. I failed to pay taxes a couple times, so I've got an IRS lien sitting against the property as well. And then while I don't pay IRS, why would I pay the HOA? So, just going to be full on delinquency. So all these could still be recorded against the chain of title. But as we talked about earlier, the chain of title never changes. So if Dustin were to buy this property at the tax sale that I just lost because I didn't pay any of my taxes or any of these, liens or encumbrances, if he takes it to the title company, they're going to look at the chain of title and see, okay, well, there was a tax deed recorded. But man, this guy here, he didn't do anything. So he owed a ton, and there's all these liens and encumbrances here. Now technically, they're supposed to be extinguished by the tax sale, but we're not comfortable ensuring that because there's no releases. How do we know they were really notified? How do we know due process was carried out correctly? And that's, the value of tax title services, is that because there's no releases that were recorded, we will go through and make sure that all these people were notified correctly. And then once that's completed, we'll issue our indemnity to the title insurance companies, letting them know that this is good to go and that we'll fight any kind of challenge. So, kind of like a quick little roadmap when you work with us. Obviously, you bid, you win, right? That's the goal. Get one in the books. The county's going to record your tax deed. We think it's a great idea to get started with us immediately.
All right, for everybody tuning in, quick little intermission here. Below this video is a totally free training called the ABCs of Tax Lien and Deed Investing. It's going to show you how to get started. It's a comprehensive guide to show you how to get started with tax liens and deeds. We have this, and we also have the tax lien and deed directories that give you the contact information to all 3,300 counties that are out there, along with some on-demand training. So all of that is for free below in the description. You can check that out right now and grab your copy below. All right, back to the show.
Because if you wait until you go under contract, or you have a pending loan, or your borrowers, got a pending loan, or you try to take it to your title company to get it done to save a couple dollars on title curative work, you're going to make yourself have a complicated transaction. It's going to add unnecessary pressure to your transaction. And I say this because, real estate it's a fast-paced business. Everybody wants to move fast, especially when it's like the investment world. So if you take this property and you get somebody under contract and then you open it with us, well, it still takes us, on average 40 days. I mean, we have a rush service, but for us to clear, these items up, while that's happening, your buyer's getting antsy, and then he's all over you, he's all over us, he's all over the title company, he's all over the realtors. And then, now this transaction has got all this unnecessary pressure on it. And it's already a little bit funky for most of the parties involved, because not every realtor and not every buyer and not every lender is used to seeing a tax sale property every single day. So there's a lot of unknown there. And now the pressures of the deal have really become burdensome. So we always think it's a good idea to get started with us, sooner than later. We can also get started if it's a county that takes a little while to get the deed recorded. I mean, I know, like if you ever buy in Philadelphia, you could be waiting, a few months before a deed goes on record. Same in some counties in California. We can get started with some kind of receipt or certificate showing that you paid the county for the property. But so once we begin our process, we'll introduce you to the title agent. We work with the majority of title underwriters throughout the country, but that footprint is spotty based on state and region for the most part. So we have vetted list of title agents that we'll provide to you that you can contact and go ahead and pick who you want to work with. And if you happen to be under contract already, get that to the title agent ASAP so they can start their basic title functions. They need to get earnest money, and the more advanced notice of the property being under contract that we have and the title company has, the better your deal is going to go. So the title company will start doing their basic functions. After about 30 to 45 days, our certification is complete, and then we'll go ahead and shoot you an email letting you know, and then send the copy to the title agency and to you as the investor. So title agent then reaches out to you if it's under contract. They're like, hey, we got this, we're ready to go forward. So here's what we need from you. We're going to order our title update real quick. Boom, 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 let's go. And so at that point, they're ordering their updates. Once everything is clear, they still have to go through and do their standard title functions, which they really can't do until they have our certification. Once everything is cleared and checks out, there's no liens or encumbrances, there's no open municipal liens or anything that popped up while in between the time the tax sale happened and the time that you've started to work on this property. Once it's all free and clear, ready to go, they'll set up closing and then close the transaction for you. And the same process kind of goes true too if you're working with a lender. So, one of the biggest things that prevents a lender from lending on a property recently obtained through tax sale is that, they can't establish senior lien position because all these other liens and encumbrances right here are still showing in title as open. So a lender typically will not lend because, in order of appearance, and then here you go, you have a lender down here, they're going to be the last in line to get paid if something happens. So, and the title insurer won't insure. So, the lender needs superior senior lien position to be able to proceed. So kind of the same process here with a loan where, you kind of want to wait till you get going. You don't want your rate lock to expire. Get the process going after you've been working with us for a couple of weeks. Go ahead and let the lender know and then proceed. And it's kind of the same thing going forward. So coverage, yeah, we are nationwide. And actually we're in Illinois too. And coincidentally, Illinois is a state that has historically not really required our service. However, they are now. We've had a lot of business pickup there, and in the state of Maryland, another kind of judicial foreclosure state, where the title insurance underwriters are becoming more hesitant to insure these types of transactions. So we've always been operational in Illinois on a case-by-case basis, but we're seeing a lot more traction there, I guess is my point. So I need to make that blue, but otherwise, if there's a state up here that you invest in and we're not in, just let us know, and we can definitely add the states as needed. And then so kind of just a little rule of thumb for investors is, I feel like you have more success if you can control variables, right? You don't want to have variables outside of your control. And so when you work with tax title services, you really get control of that variable in your transaction. When you go through a quiet title action, you really get into a world of unknown. And I'm not trying to, throw, quiet titles under the bus, because they definitely have their purpose. And when we can't complete our certification, we do say, hey, you know what, you're going to need to get a quiet title on this. However, it's not necessary on all these properties. There's not a law outside of, I think, Louisiana that I know of that says that you need to have a quiet title action for a title insurance company to provide title insurance. It's just been the historic way things were done. So the big difference is with us, you get a fixed price, and then you have, time frame, 30 to 60 days. Alabama can take about 90 days sometimes. It's one of the trickier states. However, we try to be done in under 40 days in most cases. But then, when you get into the cost and the time frame of the quiet title action, you have the two big variables, right? You have an attorney, and then you have the courts, and then you have how many people were impacted by that tax sale. And all that could weigh in on how long the quiet title takes, how long before it can get on the court's docket. And then the longer something stretches out, the more the attorney bills are probably going to stack up. And so, we've heard, in some states, 6 months. Okay. But then in other states, we've heard up to 2.5 years, if not longer. So it just really depends where you're at in the country, but you don't have control of this. Would you rather, sit around and wait for 6 months, but maybe 2 years to recoup, your investment? Or would you rather know that, in 40 days, I've got a definitive strategy and a way to obtain title insurance and either sell my property or get it performing, by renting it out and taking a loan out against it, whatever your strategy may be. I mean, if it's me, I'm going to go with what I know every single time. So you want to control the variables. So yeah, so that's crash course in Title 101, segued into title insurance. And yeah, I hope I have not overwhelmed anybody. And if I have, feel free to give our office a call. I know the contact info is down here. Website, taxtitleservices.com. The next question a lot of people ask is our fees. For vacant land under $25,000, the fee is typically $1,450. For any other improved property, we have a pricing structure kind of based state to state, and some of that's risk based, but overall the pricing starts at $1,950 throughout, I would say, 60% of the country, and then we'll go up to $2,350 depending on there's a handful of states in that bracket. So, but all that's on our website, www.taxtitleservices.com. Go check us out and let us know if you have any questions.
Excellent. Well, that was
Nice.
awesome. Really appreciate that. That was one of the best explanations of title, from the masters, which is great. Let's see. We could probably kill the screen share here and then just kind of
I can do that. I got you.
Oh, perfect.
But Nick, that was awesome. Really appreciate you going through that. I learned things, and definitely our customers who will be coming to you guys will now have a good understanding. So that was great. Couple questions as we kind of that popped up in my mind. So when you guys so kind of the understanding as far as the way it works, and I think one of the misunderstandings is that you guys do all the work so that the title company can insure directly with what they have. But really what Tax Title Services is you guys have a setup where basically it's a relationship with the title company where you're warrantying the work of the title. Is that?
Yes, so we provide an indemnity, which is why they accept our certification. If not, I mean, it's just a piece of paper. We got you, right? So no, and so that's the value. So we bring value in two ways. We want to bring value to the title insurance world, and knowing that we've taken some of the load off of their backs with underwriting these files and reviewing and making sure that everything was carried out correctly. And then the value to the investor is that, you're getting this, basically you're going to be able to proceed at a much faster pace and for, close to the same cost, of probably cheaper than a quiet title action, I would say. And throughout definitely cheaper in most of the country. I know, I've gotten quotes recently in Georgia of like $6,000 for a quiet title on top of the $1,000 for barment, where all right, so now you're into this deal $7,000, and meanwhile we can complete our certification in Georgia for like $2,150. So nice. I mean, there's exponential savings in there for investors. So yeah.
So the process of indemnity, did I say that right?
Indemnity, yeah.
Indemnity. So that term, most of our customers and clients would have never heard before. So is that something that you guys set up as a trust or something that covers, what I mean, if somebody does come back? I'm just more curious about the relationship in the sense of that the title company doesn't just have a piece of paper from this company. I'm curious what that process looks like to have them be like, okay, yeah, this is a, they feel safe.
Oh,
You know
well,
what I
I
mean?
mean, we go through a very stringent vetting process by everybody that we work with and who accepts our certification. I mean, we've got an impeccable track record. I mean, we've been around for 25 years and have, I think maybe one, if two claims that have ever popped out of 60,000 plus transactions. If you ask any title company, I mean, they're going to tell you that's probably better than most
Better than
agents'
them.
track records. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So, we make sure we do the right thing. And so, and that's kind of what's important. The indemnity for us, though, I mean, we've got our own kind of policy that backs everything else up. So, but yeah, without getting into too much detail on that portion of it, that kind of stays between us and the underwriters
Sure.
and title companies we work with.
No, that's great to start to understand it. So for the folks that are, wanting to get into liens and deeds, because a lot of people get kind of like analysis by paralysis when it comes to like researching title and just seeing all the, all the things to research and stuff like that. So for like a beginner investor, so big red flags, like you say, municipality liens, right?
Yes.
Those are going to stick around. So sometimes you'll go and you'll see, because one of the things we talk about is to make sure people, that the county has notified the person, the lien holder or the mechanic's lien and things like that.
Mhm.
How, with your service, like how diligent would you say the average new investor needs to be to make sure that, the county has notified the mechanic's lien or the HOA and stuff like that?
Well, here's what's important, and this is something that is actually a value of our service, is that you, it's very hard for an investor to go in and figure that portion out, right? Like,
Yeah.
were these people notified correctly? Prior to buying the sale. Now, immediately after you buy it, if they were not notified correctly, you can petition to have the sale overturned in a lot of cases. And the counties will definitely do that. And that's something though but you still have to figure out if that notification was carried out correctly. And I mean, the counties do generally do a great job with, issuing their notifications. We have a very high pull through rate. They do generally do a good job. However, the problem is if you wait to try to discover, what's going on with the property until it's outside of any kind of challenge or overturn period, then you're just stuck.
Yeah.
And you will need to probably go down a quiet title action to get everything, resolved. So like ultimately, like if there was like basically gross negligence on the due process where like people were not served, like people were not notified, we can't help with that. We're going to tell you, hey, this is messed up. You need to call the county and either have the sale overturned or.
All right, I hope you're enjoying this interview so far. It is so good to see you tuning in and learning about this business. Now, if you want some one-on-one help with the business, there's a link below. You can book a call with us. We can teach you and mentor you and show you exactly how to start the business, save you 5 to 10 years of trial and error, show you exactly what to do and avoid the mistakes of losing money on these deals. So you can book a call. There's a link below in the description. All right, back to the show.
You need to go through a quiet title action. And that's, kind of your two options at that point. But going into it, I would be more worried about those municipal liens than making sure that the contractor was notified correctly.
Like roughly for every 1,000 that have come through, how often that's been an issue? Or, well, I know you probably can't be exact, but just, well, we have engineers are like, but how many,
Right. Exactly. Yeah, for sure. So like, our pull through rate is relatively high. Like, we're right around like that 97%, 97.5% mark. And I mean, there's definitely states that are better than others. Alabama is one of those states where we like cringe every time one of those files pop up, but it's super popular. And a lot of that just has to do with the record keepings that go in. We can't. Those are more challenging files, and those have a much higher decline rate by us than say like a Florida tax sale property does. Florida, one of the higher pull through rates. Alabama's one of the lower ones. I mean, that's the thing. We're nationwide, and so we've not sat down and like really put together a state to state. But I can tell you off the cuff, that Alabama is definitely one of those ones that we reject, a lot. So, but I mean, I would say generally like, about 97% in the big states, your Californias, Floridas, the straight deed states. Yeah.
So then in the rejection cases, most of the time they're able to get them overturned and get their money back.
We don't really follow what happens afterwards, but what we do is we bundle up all of our work, which will have the tax sale file, title search, everything. And then, we say, hey, I would try the county, like just really at that point, depends on what the investor wants to do. Try to petition to get this overturned, let the county know what's going on. And if you can't do that, then you're going to have to go through a quiet title action and then have their interest, removed that way. And that's it. And then don't try to, do one of these quiet title actions that we've seen recently where people throw in there, we're going to quiet the world. And I don't know who made that up, but those things don't hold their weight. So if it's a quiet title by publication and you're quieting the world, those don't work. So.
Okay, so as far as like simplifying for the average person, Alabama can be a bit tricky, but the big thing just coming back to is like the municipal liens, which generally because they're counties show up fairly straightforward to begin with.
Town. Municipal town. Yeah. But most of them will record it, so that way it's known, and if it's recorded, then that base bid oftentimes starts with enough to collect what's needed to satisfy, those liens, right? It's the ones that are unrecorded, which can be very scary, and that is a very common error we see throughout Florida. So,
is an unrecorded lien. So then what would be, I guess that's up to the person then to call the county and really dive in and see, like, are there any liens on this property that are not recorded?
You've got to basically ring the individual departments. If you just call down and speak with somebody there, they're gonna, if you talk to the tract department, they're gonna tell you, we don't deal with water, and so it'll go in that way. So you definitely want to go through that.
What would be your take? We got a lot of students who like flip cheap land, you know what I mean? Maybe they buy something for $500 and they sell it for $2,000 or something. And then, this process kind of eats up all of those margins. What would you say to somebody like that?
Well, when we went back and we were talking about deeds, your quick claim deed, and just, I mean, for me, I've dabbled with some of those transactions personally, and I always just found success being upfront, say, you know what, this is a tax sale property, I would pull like a basic, the O&E report that shows, what was on title at the time of sale. Be like, look, typically with those lower value vacant lots, there's not a ton of liens or encumbrances against them, unless there's something that has been being used as somebody's personal dumping grounds for debris or whatever, who knows. But like, in a lot of cases, it's a single owner who may be deceased, or who knows. And so I would just convey a quick claim deed, and there's definitely like and then recommend them to us. Say, we know this great company named Tax Title Services that can help you when you do want to build or do whatever your strategy is with that property with these title problems. But you're getting a steal of a deal, on this lot, and here's a quick claim deed. So,
and then for the people that want to do tax lien states, do you guys foreclose on the lien for them as well, or do you refer to attorneys, or how do you fit in that? Or
so funny thing, historically in the lien states where there's a judicial foreclosure, our service, it would be very spotty, right? Like, we always like to say, if there's a need for us, we're there. And those needs sometimes come and go. Like Arizona used to be like one of our biggest states, but then I think a lot of title insurance underwriters just let title companies insure now, directly after the foreclosures, which makes sense. However, recently we've seen upticks in states like Illinois, Maryland, and Arizona, all judicial states, where there is some type of foreclosure completed, and so that could just be like maybe somebody got burned on one of those transactions, like a title company got burned doing it, or it just could be that they're too busy to really want to look at it, or whatever the case may be. They're wanting an extra layer of protection, and so we are, I guess for our role, we do not go through the foreclosure process for you. We're not attorneys. We don't get into that aspect of it. But once it's completed, if you know that it's a problem getting title insurance on that tax sale property after you foreclose, then we can help. Or if you go to your title company, whoever's the local title company, and they say, do not pass go, you need to go through a quiet title action because of the tax sale, then we could help, or, whatever the case may be. But so, I mean, on those types of, states though, I would always give it a try myself to a local company to see, what their opinion is. And if they tell you that you need a quiet title solely because of the tax sale, then come to us and we can take care of it. We won't do the quiet title. We'll do our tax title services cert, which should satisfy that.
So that's kind of the simplification of it, is like, you go get your attorney, foreclose on the lien, and then at that point, if they're saying, we can't give you title insurance, so you need to do a quiet title, bring in you guys, clear it up, and then they can either get their own lending on the property or have their buyer come in, because now they're able to get title insurance, right?
Exactly. Yep. Buyer could get any type of loan that they wish. So basically every bank, lender, loan product you can think of,
Good to
we've
go.
worked with.
So places like California with a 1-year redemption period, are you guys able to speed that up as well then?
Well, so California's, it's not a technical redemption period. It's a challenge period. And so with a challenge period, it's, if I lost the property at tax sale, I live in California. If I lost my property at tax sale, I couldn't just walk in and pay the taxes and take it back. And that's kind of that's what we view a redemption period as, is that you can just walk in and pay the taxes and take it back. So what they have though is a challenge period where, okay, I could petition and try to overturn the sale if there was error. And so, yes, we operated that 1 year all day long. It's like our sweet spot really across the country, as long as it's not a true redemption period where somebody can just walk in, pay taxes, and retain ownership of that property or have ownership given right back, then we are good to go. Like that 1 year challenge period in California is very similar to that 4-year period that follows a tax sale in Florida, where it's kind of the same thing. You can petition to overturn it. Now, whether or not a judge is willing to do it, that's a whole, you got to prove the reason why, not just that I didn't think it was real. But yeah, so we can definitely help in California on that one.
So what would be a time, because we do have a lot of people in California, so what would be like a realistic timeline for you guys? You can extinguish that challenge period within 30, 60, 90 days, or?
Oh, immediately. I mean, we have people that send us orders like as soon as they walk off the log out of their auction website portal and send us over the receipt and we get going. Now we cannot complete the certification until that tax deed goes on record. But we can have everything ready to go up to, and that really helps expedite that process greatly.
So as a rule of thumb for everybody watching, like if it is a property, where you're wanting that title, like call you guys up pretty much immediately to get started on it, right? Unless you're buying and flipping, cheap $100 to $500 or $1,000 pieces of land, then you can deal with the deed that way.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of those on the back end of these California sales too. And
so Josh, because we've done quick claim deeds before with people before the auction. And what came to mind is we actually never even thought can you do your own warranty deed with the former owner just as quick? So that they're responsible for liens? Because we've done quick claim deeds in like pinch situations, but like if Josh owns a house, can he give me a warranty deed? Or does that have to be done with the title company?
Well, no, yeah, you can create your own warranty deeds, yes, but that, like, Josh would be on the hook for anything there, for any warranty to that property. So if there's a loan against that property and he sells it to you, he's still on the hook for it. I mean, even if he quit claims it to you, he's still on the hook for it. But yeah, so you can create your own warranty deed and record it yourself as well.
So then in that situation, if somebody were to come and I buy the property from Josh, he gives me the warranty deed, and then I sell it, and then someone comes back to me, do I have to deal with it, or does the person who issued the warranty deed have to deal with that?
You both kind of do. I mean,
I
so
do, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, yeah, it's going to start with you. Then you go,
Go
back
back to
to
him.
Josh, yeah, and then you guys got to figure that out. And whether that's, it sounds like it's heading right towards court.
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody wins in those circumstances. I will say though, and one of the things that we've heard throughout the title industry is that, deed fraud has become like a very, very, prevalent problem throughout the industry. And so now, if there's like consecutive uninsured deeds in a chain of title, then there's going to be much more stringent title insurance underwriter requirements. Because we've seen it all. And I was on the title agent side forever. And I mean, I've been involved in, probably 15 to 20,000 closings, for tax sale, seen it all. I mean, we've had guys quit claim the property like 5 different times within their family, and then warranty deed it to their buddy, and then think they're just going to come in and avoid going through a quiet title or tax title services. It doesn't work that way. Save yourself the recording fees. And but so with the whole caveat of the deed fraud thing, so title companies now are basically seeing that, one, if it's a deed fresh out of foreclosure, definitely always keep a tight eye on it. But two, if there's a quit claim deed or even like a warranty deed that's like not conducted through a title company, that's going to go further under the microscope for title insurance underwriters.
So like for the people tuning in, and I think we've seen examples for this under case studies, is like if you see the deed transferring before the sale, 4 or 5 times, it's people trying to skirt the system. But in those situations, they're not really, it just requires a little more extra back end to clean up when you guys get involved, right?
Well, deed transfer directly before a sale. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to review everything a little bit further, but oftentimes what that is somebody trying to apply for excess proceeds. So that way they have the right to those proceeds from the sale. But yeah, so that is definitely something. Either way, it's an uninsured deed going out of the tax sale, and it's a tax sale. And for all those reasons we talked about earlier, it's going to be under the lens. Yes, if there is like that, like quick little deed that happens, like, the day before the sale, yeah, that's going to raise an eyebrow for us too. So everybody's got to be notified. So.
Thanks. Josh, Corey, what questions come to mind after this most extensive title chat we've ever had?
With the IRS and the holding period. So if there's an IRS lien on a property that goes through a tax deed sale, is that a property where you're unable to do the 30 to 60 days and you've got to wait for the 120-day period to end?
I don't think now, like this would be something I would always ask our underwriter for. And, I'm just a sales guy, so I'll tell you, let's go. But I believe they won't even issue you the deed until the 120-day period is passed. So, but if not, if they do, then yes, we would let you know if for some reason that did happen. We would need to see that, one, they were notified, and then two, that correct amount of time has passed. So either way, yeah, if it was something opened up immediately after and there was an IRS lien, we would need to make sure that time period has expired. In our experience, the IRS is more worried about that particular person than they are worried about, the property itself.
So say somebody, there's a property, they bought it for, it's worth 300, they buy it for 50, but there's $100,000 IRS lien on it. They'll just have to be prepared to wait 120 days.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, there's a notification the county will send, and then basically it's just like an extra 120 days that need to be waited out before anything can really happen. So, but I believe that does happen post sale or at the time of sale. So yeah, there is some risk. We have seen instances of I don't think IRS, but other federal agencies who have that similar right to basically say, no, you know what, we want to keep this property. Typically, it's like a drug seizure or something like that, not necessarily IRS, but yeah.
Something in the basement they want to dig for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Looking for Hoffa. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Good stuff. Corey, any questions coming to mind for you?
No, just the IRS one was the one that I had kind of a question about, but yeah, I learned a lot. It's super helpful.
Josh?
I had a question too. So let's say investors comfortable just using their own cash. They want to buy the property at a tax deed sale, and they want to do the rehab themselves with cash. And so they don't necessarily have any intention of selling it or getting a loan against the property. But then if they don't use tax title services and if they don't do anything, and down the road, they realize there was something wrong, in your experience, would it be better for, whether they're going to hold it or not, just to bring tax title services into the mix at the beginning, just to make sure they're not going to run into any snags down the road?
All right, guys, I hope you're enjoying this so far. Remember, if you like this content, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up on this video. Go ahead, subscribe so you can tune into this information coming up. Ask me questions in the comments. I would love to hear from you. Hit the thumbs up and let's dive back in right now.
Yeah, if you're going to be putting your own capital into fixing up a property, you want to make sure you're protected, right? That's huge. And then depending on what that error could have been, in the time in which it's lapsed, it's not like the county sells these properties and they just hold the money in a little piggy bank that they never touch. That money is getting put back to use. So if you buy a property, you throw, your money into it to fix it up, and then whatever you're living in it or using it as a rental, and then 2 years down the road, you realize that there was this horrible problem that happened, or at the tail end of the redemption period or whatever, that, I guess so. Best way to put it would be, if it's an open redemption period and you're doing extensive rehab, then just know that you could lose that property at any second when somebody wants to come pay the taxes. And there's nothing you can really do on that. So always, avoid doing major rehab during, actually a true open redemption period. If it's during a challenge period, definitely you want to have somebody take a second look at it to make sure that, somebody's not going to come out of the woodwork and claim that, they were not notified of the property being sold. So what happens in that circumstance is, we've seen multiple things. We've seen some cases where, the investors just refunded their initial investment and then they're out that money that they put into the property. Sometimes though, if there's improvements, depending on the state, the judge will say that they also owe you your money plus improvements. So it just really depends on the state and the area. But I would say, if it were me, before I lifted a hammer or did anything, I would want to know. You don't even have to buy a policy right after we're finished. You could just get us and have us look at it, and we'll complete the certification. Our certification is valid for 6 months. So at least, in that period, that, okay, granted, if there's no title policy, our certification doesn't really offer you any protections. Okay. But you'll know that if we're willing to certify it, that there is a very, 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 very low chance of somebody who's going to try to challenge your interest in that property. If we're willing to certify it, that means we're putting our neck out for a title insurance company to be okay insuring it. So I would say it would definitely be a good idea to give us a ring and have us look at the file.
Nice. And
That's,
then
that's
one of the questions, we haven't done this, we've done a lot in Texas and Philly. And we actually never thought of this or have done it, but some people talk about like if you buy in Texas, there's the redemption period, finding the homeowner and having them actually sign off on the redemption period so that you don't have to wait. Have you guys dealt with that? We've never done it, but we get
Yeah.
asked about it. And I was like, oh, that's actually a good idea. Can it be done?
Mhm. Yeah, it can for sure. But then when you do that, I don't know if it necessarily wipes out, everything. I guess it really depends, because it would really depend on the number of parties that are affected. If it's a current owner, now here's the biggest mistake that I've seen personally is that people will use a quitclaim deed in the state of Texas, which doesn't really hold its weight for anything. So a quitclaim deed is not a recognized deed in the state of Texas. So you would need to use what's called a deed without warranty and have them sign that instead of sign like a quitclaim deed like you would do in Philadelphia, or really any other state in the country. But yeah, I mean, overall, I guess that if you're waiving your right to the redemption period, and this is all hypothetical, we haven't seen it a whole ton. We haven't worked on a ton of properties like that. But that would kind of I guess eliminate that right of that party.
Yes, I
So
guess if you had a property where somebody owned it outright, right? And
mhm.
there's no other liens or mortgages, it's like just somebody, it was paid for, it went to auction, they screwed up, they don't want it, then that would be easy. But if they were to release it, it doesn't mean that the right of redemption is released to that mortgage company, right?
So
Possibly
it's
redeem them if there's a mortgage on the property.
yeah, if there's a mortgage, no, that mortgage is still going to be there, and that's now your responsibility. So the redemption period would need to expire.
Exactly, for that to be wiped out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for that to not be enforceable. But then, so if it's just somebody who's owned it outright forever, there's no other liens or encumbrances, and then you go get a deed with warranty signed, deed without warranty, I'm sorry, by that prior party. The only obstacle you're really going to hit now are the two uninsured deeds in the chain of title.
Mhm.
So, oftentimes what will happen is the title company who you take the transaction to, or who you're trying to use for whatever you're going to do with it, they may ask to speak or have like an affidavit notarized by that prior party who lost the property, so that way they know with certainty that the deed was not fabricated, kind of falsely. It's not something that I've encountered a ton, so I can't really tell you for sure if that's like a rock solid approach. But I have heard of it, and does not. I don't think I personally have dealt with one of those files. So I can ask around the office though and get back with
I
you.
guess it'd be a case by case, and at the end of the day, if it were super effective, probably a lot more. We would have heard about it a lot more, and whatever, 6 months, so way you go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not that bad.
So excellent. Well, Nick, this is awesome, and I think this might be one of the most comprehensive looks into title that has been done kind of in this field, as far as clearing up things for beginner investors and getting them into it. So from here, they can go to taxtitleservices.com. There'll be a link below this as well. Just let them know we sent you. And this has been awesome. Anything else to add?
No, that's it. Yeah, I hope I didn't overwhelm anybody. And I mean, title's one boring topic. So
boring but important. It's the little detail up everybody.
Everybody gets so googly eyed over buying a property at tax sale, and it's the asset, it's the property, right? But then it's like, oh man, forgot about this. So just don't forget about title.
Yeah.
And
Forget about title.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, very much appreciated. Thank you.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Appreciate it.
Corey, Joshua, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
All right. We'll see you later. All right, thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed that interview. And that is actually a clip from our private access area that if you get started working with us, you get lots of content like this. That's just a little bit of a sample of what we like to do with the people that we work with. But I also wanted to provide the most comprehensive training and overview on title that there is online for tax liens and deeds. So The next step, grab the ABCs of tax lien and deed investing. It is below in the description. You can go ahead, you can enjoy that right away. Get this as well. It is the Tax Lien Deed directory that's going to show you how to start. And from there, what you're going to get free access to all of these cool free trainings. Once again, it's totally free as my gift to you, to our community here. That is down below in the description. Hit the thumbs up on your way there. And from there, if you want some help with this stuff, you can always book a call with us. We can show you what to do. We do some mentoring and coaching with a few people every other month. So there's a link below. You can book a call, totally free. We can have a great discussion. And once again, guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one.